It's the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, broadcasting live from downtown Nashville. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. In studio, Academy Award nominated screenwriter, a great friend, terrific writer, author of so many novels, and got a Substack now. What, American Refugee? What is it?
American Refugees, .substack.com. But if you're looking to find it, it's real simple. Just Google, I hate that, Roger Simon Substack, and boom. It's all
Yeah.
not too hard.
Yeah, exactly. Roger Simon. Welcome, Roger. And let's just start out with... We'll get to the Kennedy thing in just a minute, but I've got some breaking news.
Oh, there's more. It keeps happening, huh?
This is why it's so great. Remember, the news cycle is like 15 minutes.
You know, years ago when I was running PJ Media, I coined something.
What'd you
called
coin?
the politics of the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Now it's down to 2.
Well, here's the breaking news. And this is, like in our program, this is the kind of stuff that we do. We track this, and it's real hard to do. Because all you do is you go on X and you watch what happens. Right. It's not hard to do at all. It breaks on X, and then immediately our friends at Just the News get a story up.
Yeah, sure.
Headline, and this is by Ben Whedon at Just the News. It broke literally 12 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
Judge allows Trump to seek dismissal of DA Bragg's hush money case. Trump was convicted earlier this year on 34 counts of falsifying business records. Here we go. In a major legal win for President-elect Donald Trump, a New York judge on Friday permitted him to seek the dismissal of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's hush money case.
That's not even slightly surprising at this point.
Mm-hmm.
That thing is so in the rearview mirror now, given whatever thing has happened. Good thing it's reported, but that stuff is all over.
U.S. District Judge. No, it's not U.S. District Judge. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
See, this when it happens fast.
It also can be AI screwing it up. I can tell some stories about how AI is still under development.
He is a Manhattan. He's a Manhattan, New York State judge.
Yeah.
Manhattan, New York State judge Juan Merchan on Friday set a deadline of December 2nd for Trump to file a motion to dismiss. Reuters reported. He previously canceled a planned late November sentencing for Trump. So you'll see what's going to happen.
Yeah, there's only one thing Juan Merchan is worried about now. It's his own problem with his daughter and all the money that they siphoned off millions for because they put Trump on trial. So it's just a con job.
And Pam Bondi, who was part of Trump's defense team, is about to be confirmed as Attorney General.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what she does. Anyway, she's going to have a kind of a smorgasbord.
She's going to have a lot to go after.
She's going to have to and select carefully.
She's very serious. She's a very competent attorney.
Oh, yeah.
Very competent. Yeah. Okay, so as we talked about with EJ yesterday in a previous segment, it's November 22nd, 1963, 61 years ago.
Right.
On a Friday. It was a Friday when John F. Kennedy was assassinated.
I remember it was a Friday. Yeah, okay, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. And what you've forgotten from previous...
I know, we've talked about this before, and I
have
forgotten.
The song goes, "Today is my birthday." I was 20 years old the day that JFK was shot.
On that day?
On that day.
Your birthday?
Yeah. And I was then
So happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
You're 81.
Yeah, exactly.
I can
never hide it because it's on Wikipedia and they update it mathematically with whatever algorithm they use. I can't hide my birthday. Anyway, at the age of 20, I was getting dressed to go down to Skidmore in Saratoga Springs, New York, where I had a girlfriend.
So you were in Dartmouth?
Yeah, I was in Dartmouth.
Were you a senior?
I was in North Hall.
Were you a senior?
I was a senior. I went through school fast. Anyway, and the news came out.
Dartmouth, by the way, is in Hanover, New Hampshire.
Right, and Skidmore is Saratoga Springs, New York. Actually, it's about roughly a 2-hour drive because I made it a lot in those days. Anyway, I was getting arrested, and I went, wow! And I continued down to Saratoga and picked up my girlfriend. We went into a motel where I had booked a room, sat down in front of the black and white television of those days, and watched Ruby shoot Oswald.
Wow.
I mean, I remember it graphically. It was a moment that I can't get how the hell the guy got in there is part of the story that we don't know. Yeah. I mean, of course, I lived through everything you did, which is years of millions of ruminations about what actually happened. And maybe, just maybe, we're going to find out in a few months.
I think we will. I mean, there are files that have not been released. There are some hints that there may be some very troubling revelations when those are released.
Yes, and as you know, I interviewed for the Epoch Times when I was still working for them, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And it was a fairly lengthy interview down in Memphis, and I talked to him a lot about the CIA because that really fascinates me. The unfortunate power that it has over citizens within the country when it's supposed to be paying attention to people outside the country. Anyway, and it was clear that he would love to see a lot of things opened up here, and I think President Trump will want to see that. So it'll be interesting. I mean, the role of the CIA in this is probably the linchpin of what the problem is, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
It's still possible that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, but how he acted alone, why? A lot of things are not clear.
There are a lot of things that have not been released that should have been released.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean,
and it's 61 years.
Yeah,
that's a long time.
It is.
We've probably talked about this a little bit before, but my feeling, you remember what America was like before the Kennedy assassination. You lived 20 years before these. I was, how old was I then? I was born in 55. I would have been, 9 years old? No, 8 years old. Yeah. But I mean, I remember.
You're a kid.
I know, I'm a kid, but I remember my deal was, I went to this little tiny school in upstate New York, just a few miles south of the Canadian border, the prison town, Dannemora, right?
Right.
Where, many years later, the guys escaped from the little manhole.
Oh, I remember that.
The guys, so this is a wooden schoolhouse, literally. My dad was the principal of the school. That was the first thing.
I didn't know that part.
My dad, he'd been a shop teacher, and he'd been born in Hemingford, Quebec, and then joined the Army and became an American citizen. And he'd been a shop teacher, and then he wanted to make more money and became a principal. And his first job was to be principal of this K through 12 school called Dannemora, which had 300 kids, K through 12. I was in a class with 12 kids. Yeah.
How was that to be the son of the principal?
Oh, it was a mixed bag, but it was pretty good, actually.
So you didn't get sent to the principal's office?
I did on a couple times for good reason. And but anyways, I was there, and in the front row of Mrs. Levine's third grade class, we were doing a study on the textile industry of North Carolina, and my dad came over the PA system and said the president's been shot, and an hour later, the president is dead. And I remember how shocked everybody was, and how the country, how it changed overnight in a very bad way. And on that note, I want to talk to you about that, about America, and do we have a golden age ahead of us? I think we just might. Back after this.
Hey there, this is Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of The Glock Store. As a proud sponsor of this show, you may have heard Michael Patrick Leahy mention us a few times over the past 4 years. But today, it's me on the radio telling you how pleased we are to be associated with Michael Patrick Leahy and his dedication to the highest levels of professional journalism. Michael Patrick Leahy has been threatened with jail time in bringing the true facts about that Nashville Covenant shooting to his listening audience. Michael Patrick Leahy, you keep doing what you're doing, and we here at the Glock Store will keep sponsoring your show for the good of Nashville and the entire country. And I'm personally inviting all of your listeners to come visit and shoot at the Glock Store. It's where Michael Patrick Leahy learned to shoot a gun for the first time and where he bought his own personal Glock 19. I'm Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store here in Nashville, just minutes from the airports, worth the drive from anywhere, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy and the Tennessee Star Report.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. Roger Simon in studio with us here. Roger, I've got a funny story I got to start out with. It's sort of related. You'll see the segue here. It's from our friends at the Babylon Bee.
Oh, well, I hope it's funny then.
Well,
they usually are.
Headline: Post-menopausal lesbians flee America over concerns about forced pregnancies.
I know who they're talking about.
Dateline London. A pair of postmenopausal lesbians announced they had fled the United States over concerns about forced pregnancies. Ellen DeGeneres and Portia de Rossi revealed they had taken refuge in the serene English countryside where they could be free from being forced to carry babies to term. No one's forcing me to have a baby, Ellen said of her decision to leave the United States. Okay, I can't have one for biological reasons, and I'm a lesbian, but still, hands off my uterus, Trump.
You know, as someone who worked with these people for too many years, not Ellen DeGeneres, but a number of them, like, you know, all these people who are fleeing, that is the biggest BS on all time. One of the reasons it's huge BS is they'll be on a plane in 10 minutes for work.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, they'll be right back in L.A. or wherever they have to go. It's not. It's just absolute hokum.
On a related topic, it's kind of similar about virtue signaling, right?
Yeah.
So here in Nashville, we have the old-style newspaper, the Tennessean, which once was a newspaper, and now it's just a rag owned by Gannett.
I wasn't even here when it was ever a newspaper.
Yeah, really.
And that's now over 6 years. So.
They were the morning newspaper. And we're going back to, like, you know, the 1970s, 80s, 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's an afternoon newspaper called The Banner, which was, you know, kind of moderate. Mm-hmm. And it ceased publication about 25 years ago. But some center-left millionaires picked up the name and have created the Nashville Banner, which is an online site. And the news yesterday is they are leaving X because it's such a I'm
you know, what's chicken shit sale? I mean, you know, it's just pathetic. You know why they're leaving in part? They're outgunned intellectually. Mm-hmm. They don't want to hang with people like Musk and Vivek who have IQs
of like 200.
Theirs. Yeah. That's the bitter truth.
I'll read this thread for amusement purposes only, you know. And Dimitri Kalodemus is over there, and, you know, to all these hand-wringers. We have been disturbed by the rapid increase of racism, conspiracy theories, and disinformation on the X platform over the last 2 years. X's decision to de-emphasize safety and moderation and limit tools like blocking has created a toxic environment.
I know that nothing more toxic than freedom of speech. You know, these people are absolutely reactionaries. That's who they are. You know, I confuse people on my Substack. I used to do that and confuse them on Epoch Times by calling leftists reactionaries. But I did it for a very specific reason, because I knew it was the biggest insult you could call them that. Because when I was much younger, I had this amazing experience. I think it's worth telling you.
Sure.
As an anecdote, this is my birthday. I'll take.
Happy birthday!
Yeah. What it is that I guess I was still a Dartmouth student, so I was like 18, 19, and it must have been some vacation period. This is a long time ago, so I can't give you exact things, but it was like Thanksgiving or something like that, and I had come down to New York for the holiday, and I was at my grandmother's apartment. And my grandmother was an older widow, nice lady, who had used to give little parties for her friends, where they would have, all those hors d'oeuvres that were on sticks, with stuck in a grapefruit, that kind of thing. And the lady that did that for my grandmother, who worked with her, had a famous name. She was Paula Kissinger. And she was the mother of Henry.
The mother of Henry.
So I knew this. This was the time that Henry, for the first time, went from his Harvard professorship to Washington as an important advisor. Must have been in the New York Times or something, and I read about it. I went up to Paula, and I said, well, congratulations on Henry. God, he's going to the White House to be an advisor. And Paula looked at me and said, with an old Yiddish accent, "Oy, what a reactionary."
She was not impressed with her son.
In other words, he wasn't a straight-out commie. So at that time, in my youth, I learned the worst insult you can call somebody on the left is a reactionary. So I delight in calling them all reactionaries, which is really what they are, because they're living in the past. And that's my anecdote for today.
Wow, that's a great anecdote. And I do think what I love about the past 2 weeks and 3 days is America is optimistic again. America is going to do great things again, and America will be united again. There's still, the never Trumper crowd, but they're not going to have a platform. MSNBC, Roger, is up for sale.
Yes.
And
I hope Musk buys it.
Well, why wouldn't he? Look,
Trump changed him.
I think, a year from today, Elon Musk will have bought what used to be MSNBC, and it will be XBC. And Roger, you and I will probably have a show on it.
Well, it's yes, they're being decimated, no question about it. But it's quite amazing to the degree that people hang on to their old ideas.
Well, they do. And
there was a great old Maoist expression about that. Mao wrote a critical essay accusing people and then saying that they're not breaking with old ideas. That was, in a way, he was right on that level. I mean, people have to learn to break with old ideas. I mean, I did. I used to be pretty far left, and but that seems like a different human being quite a long time ago. But it's healthy to reevaluate everything. It's a healthy thing for the mind, and it's also fantastically healthy for society. And I would agree with you 100%. We're entering a new golden era. It's just fabulous to imagine the things that could happen.
And I want to talk a little bit about this. When you first hired me at PJTV back in 2009, when we started the Tea Party movement, there was a guy, and then I wrote the Covenant of Liberty about the Tea Party movement. But right around that time, there was a guy by the name of James Bennett who wrote a book about the Anglosphere.
Right.
And how the Anglosphere would save Western civilization. And that was, of course, where people speak English. So the United Kingdom, England, where it all began, individual liberties, the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, it all started in English law.
Certainly.
Canada, Australia, New Zealand. So that was going to be the bastion of liberty. They've all fallen except for the United States.
Yeah, the so-called Five Eyes.
Yeah.
But I am optimistic ultimately about that. I'll tell you why.
Tell me why.
I think that if Trump is really successful, and I hope he will be, that his success will start to permeate into these societies.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
But it's down
gonna
to
take a little while.
It's down to it's the last hope for Western civilization is the United States of America, Donald Trump, and the MAGA movement.
Yes.
That's it. It's
well,
us.
there's one other place.
Tell me.
Israel.
And Israel. But we're aligned with Israel.
Yes.
But you're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Israel is fighting
I agree
for
with
West.
that.
The real fight right now in Israel is for Western civilization, although 90% of it doesn't even realize it.
No, I think you're exactly right. And I am so optimistic, Roger. And it's almost like, how do you allow yourself to be so optimistic after 16 plus years of misery?
It's a compliment to you, maybe a compliment to me. Meaning that, you keep the faith, as they say.
Keep the faith,
and, And you're of a kind of basic optimistic personality somewhere beneath all the crap.
Hey, when we come back, this is going to be exciting. The great Mike Benz, who has done all the investigative research about the deep state, will be here. We'll talk about what's going to happen at the FBI.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how optimistic he is.
Yeah.
Because he tends not to be.
We'll see. We got the breaking news about Trump saying it's not going to be Mike Rogers.
Good news.
Yeah. Back with Mike Benz after this. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy. He's Roger Simon.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back in studio, all-star panelist Roger Simon. On our newsmaker line right now, our very good friend Mike Benz, the head of the Foundation for Freedom Online, former State Department official, and an expert on the intelligence community blob. Mike, welcome.
Hey, great to talk to you, Michael.
Some breaking news just about an hour ago. Dan Scavino went on Truth Social and said, I just talked to President Trump. It's not going to be Mike Rogers to be the head of the FBI. Did you see that? What's your reaction to that, Mike?
Well, a huge sigh of relief, obviously. I think, I've been pretty hard on Mike Rogers as FBI pick over the past month. But, in my heart of hearts, it's frankly not hard enough. It's hard for me to imagine why you wouldn't just go with Jim Comey again.
Boom.
This could be worse.
So, Mike, you're such a serious guy, and here you hit us with this funny line. That's very good.
Well, I wish I was joking. I mean, the Mike Rogers rabbit hole is so deep and vast. It's like a veritable checklist item, check by check of every red flag you could possibly envision, even some new creative ones that I wouldn't have thought possible. I mean, in addition to him being a full-throated Russiagator, he was the guy who was the head of the House Intelligence Committee who greenlit all of the CIA malfeasance against Donald Trump. He's caught on camera talking to Michael Hayden, General Michael V. Hayden, volunteering to help General Michael V. Hayden put Edward Snowden on a kill list.
I saw that.
And as soon as Mike Rogers says that, he says, oops, I forgot the cameras are rolling. Yeah. Snowden, who's the one who busted the illegal domestic bulk surveillance that James Clapper, the director of national intelligence under Obama, perjured himself saying didn't exist until Snowden leaked it. So James Clapper should be in jail because of the Edward Snowden revelation. Mm-hmm. A court ruled that it was illegal for the NSA to do what it was doing, and Snowden revealing the illegal domestic wiretapping and surveillance of the NSA resulted in Mike Rogers collabing with General Michael V. Hayden to kill him with a drone strike. Then you have Mike Rogers, who, I don't know how he has time in the day, frankly, for all the evil things that he plots. I mean, he's
Mike, Roger Simon here. I knew about half of that, and it fascinated me. I couldn't understand why. Maybe you can unpack this. Why Rogers' name was even being bandied about for this job in the first place?
Well, what's interesting is how long it was allowed to go on. There have been previous examples of names sort of floated out in the ether. I mean, frankly, Mike Pompeo and Nikki Haley's, potential nominations for positions were dispelled by Trump faster than the Mike Rogers one.
Yes.
I'm not sure how much of that went. There's a strange 4D chess element to almost everything Trump does, where you don't know if there's a leak that he allows to persist because it's sort of letting 1,000 flowers bloom, so to speak, in terms of sussing out what people say, or if it's used as leverage. For example, the fact that it was dispelled right when Pam Bondi was announced as Attorney General, I find somewhat interesting, because he seemed to keep the Mike Rogers FBI pick afloat as long as Matt Gaetz was.
Good point. Good point.
Excellent point. Excellent. Yes.
And so it's very possible that there was the hope that floating the potential of Mike Rogers until the last minute would give the most run room to Matt Gaetz, that there might be a compromise position from the Senate GOP holdouts who are opposed to Gaetz, that at least they'd be getting Rogers in as an offset. But when
good chess analysis.
Yeah. So when the Gaetz thing died on the vine, and I don't know how I feel about Pam Bondi. I'd like to be able to say that I simply trust Trump's intuition on these things. The state of Florida generally has been good, and so an attorney general from there. But at the same time, I have to say I have been consistently disappointed by the Florida attorney general level action. Of all the activism that's been done, and frankly, I think it's a misnomer to call it activism, sort of using the New York Times framing on that. But all the rule of law justice pursuits by state attorney generals. Ken Paxton out of Texas has been unbelievably fantastic. He sued the State Department for the censorship operation. He sued Pfizer for false advertising about the efficacy of the COVID vaccines. Andrew Bailey from Missouri has pursued censorship lawsuits in a totally aggressive and passionate and totally necessary way. Same with Louisiana. Same with even to some extent Tennessee. And I've seen almost nothing come out of the Florida Attorney General level that has actually pursued a bold case in furtherance of freedom of speech or civil liberties or taking on the malfeasance of the Biden DOJ. So I saw Jeb Bush on Twitter this morning celebrating Pam Bondi. My initial sense is cautiously optimistic because Trump generally has, I think it's important to support Trump until there are signs that it's a mistake. But I don't have the enthusiasm level about the present Justice Department that I did. It's hard for me to imagine, for example, someone coming from the Florida State AG, given what I just laid out, that would take on the residual issues around January 6th, the residual issues around the censorship industry, because there were so many opportunities to do that from Florida that were simply not taken up.
Well, Trump has made a lot of noise about pardoning January 6 people. She's not going to undercut that, I don't think.
Well, the issue is there's a lot of ways that a cabinet head can betray a president without it looking like a betrayal. There's lots of little tricks, lots of little ways that you can outsource things. Rather, there are informal networks that you can establish. There are all sorts of tricks that you can do in terms of destroying evidence. I mean, this was a major issue around Bill Barr when he was the head of the Justice Department. The fact is Bill Barr allowed the destruction of virtually all evidence. This is why I always say the FBI is where evidence goes to die. That obviously predates the Epstein case by about a century, but it was Bill Barr who effectively said, "Hey, it's no problem at all that the pages in the record books of the visitors' logs went missing in the prison where Epstein was held."
A good example.
No problem at all that both cameras simultaneously malfunctioned and are irrecoverable.
Just a coincidence.
I mean, the likelihood of that happening in the January 6th case, to me, is extremely strong. I would like to further diligence Pam Bondi before really issuing a final judgment on it. But I have to say, given that Jeb Bush has been a part of this Bush plan backstabbing of Trump world, I don't like to see him spiking footballs.
Yeah,
that usually means the other team won.
Good point. Now let's talk about the FBI. Trump appointed Christopher Wray, the current director, to this job. It's a 10-year term in 2017. Will Christopher Wray resign before January 20th, or will Trump have to fire him on the afternoon of January 20th?
I hope he gets fired like a dog. I hope he's forced to do a naked walk of shame, like Game of Thrones style. I mean, Christopher Wray is one of the most evil people to occupy the FBI. Chris Wray should have been perp walked in 2017 when he threatened to leave. Here's another thing that's somewhat ironic. You know who Trump interviewed for the FBI position before picking Christopher Wray in 2017 to replace Comey? Mike Rogers.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So how about but you think that he will be, if he doesn't resign, if I'm Christopher Wray, I've resigned before January 20th, but okay, so let's say he doesn't. He'll get fired like that afternoon, won't he?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So
Who do you like as a replacement?
there you go.
Well, Kash Patel is obviously the name that's been floated, and that's my first pick. I think that he would be fantastic in the role. I think symbolically, it would go a long way towards restoring trust in the FBI to have someone who comes in with the philosophy of cleaning house. I mean, it was Kash Patel who famously said that what he would do as FBI director is he would shut down the J. Edgar Hoover Capitol headquarters and turn it into a deep state museum.
I love that idea.
Yeah, that is a good idea.
By the way, it is such a terrible example of brutal architecture. It's the ugliest building in Washington D.C., and that says a lot.
A lot. Yeah, they should knock it down.
It's almost ugly and brutal on purpose. Yeah, I will never forget 2 days after January 6th when there was like a dance party at the FBI headquarters. I remember very vividly on January 8th, and the whole city was on lockdown. You know, there were electronic billboards on every street corner. There were armed guards from the military with the largest assault rifles you've ever seen in your life. There were practically tanks at every intersection. And I remember walking by the J. Edgar Hoover building, the FBI headquarters, and there was loud classic rock music, so loud in the building that I thought, what? You could hear it on the street outside of it. I thought, what the heck is going on? But I didn't want to approach the building. And then I remember later that day going on Twitter and seeing somebody else had experienced that and had actually walked up to the main door and asked the security guard what this was about. And it was effectively like they were having some party at the FBI 2 days after January 6th that was so loud they were celebrating.
Yeah, they were celebrating their successful operation, I would argue.
Yeah, well, one of the BS things that I remember Sean Hannity always saying, and I'd like to hear your reaction to this, is that the problem with the FBI is only the people on the top floor there. The rest of them are okay. Obviously, if there was a party going on, it wasn't just on the top floor.
I would like to believe that there may have been a time when I did. I do no longer.
Two last questions for you, Mike. We've got about a minute left. Number one, is Rick Grinnell possibly under consideration to be the head of the FBI?
I haven't heard that name for FBI. The names that I've heard have, I think Ken Paxton out of Texas would be unbelievable.
That would be great.
I think Andrew Bailey out of Missouri would be fantastic as well. Those are my top two alternate.
How about is there a place in the Trump administration for Mike Pence?
Time will tell.
I love that answer. Mike Pence, the director of the Freedom Information Center. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Michael.
All right. We'll be back with more after this.
My fellow Americans, I was this close, very close, to buying from the lumber yards. These are sick people. But I turned my head at the last second, and I saw a big, beautiful ad for D.T. McCall's. These are highly respected people. If I had not turned my head at the last second, I would have been ripped off at some lumber yard for $200 in hidden charges, and D.T. McCall & Sons are never going to do that. They'd never do that to you. These are great people. I've known them for a long time. They have great deals, and I just have to say, nobody knows deals like I do. D.T. McCall & Sons has locations in Lebanon, Carthage, Lafayette, Cookeville, and Franklin, and they have been family-owned in Middle Tennessee for over 100 years. These are tremendous people. D.T. McCall & Sons. Check out one of their stores today.
Impersonator not endorsed by Donald Trump.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. All-Star panelist Roger Simon here in studio. Roger, yesterday, this entity called the International Criminal Court decided to issue arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, former Defense Minister Gallant, many Hamas leaders. And
only one, really.
Only one.
That's come up on a lot of sites. But the Hamas leader that they want to arrest is Mohammed Deif, who almost everybody thinks is dead. So it's a purely symbolic piece of BS.
Who is the International Criminal Court, and why does anybody pay any attention to them?
All right. I wrote about it extensively on my Substack because it just drives me crazy. The International Criminal Court came into existence in 2000 by something called the Rome Statute. It's part of the UN, like everything else. It's crappy. Anyway, about I think it's 124 countries have signed on to it. The United States has not signed on to it. Neither is China, for that matter. But so, for example, Canada has signed on to it, and Mr. Trudeau, their great leader, possibly the legitimate son of Fidel Castro, has agreed now that he would arrest Netanyahu should he turn up in Toronto.
What a weasel Trudeau is.
Oh, yeah, he's just awful. And now also the new Prime Minister of the UK, Sturmer, has also said something similar.
He's like a character out of 1984.
Yeah. The whole idea of the criminal court is crazy because they're blaming Netanyahu and Gallant for a mega crime that was committed by a man named Khamenei in Iran, the Ayatollah. It is Iran that has instigated this entire thing. It is Iran that has financed Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, various groups who change their name every 3 days in Iraq and Syria, and are responsible for a huge amount of deaths. And yet, there's more stuff about Khamenei. I mean, he oversaw. There have been three great protest movements. I'm sort of an Iran freak in a way. There have been three protest movements in Iran in the last few years, where Khamenei has arrested all these protesters, and many of them were tortured in Evin prison. Things that are human rights violations beyond conception, beyond Mengele. In fact, here's one I'll give you that the International Criminal Court just completely ignored. When a woman does something bad and says, for example, death to the dictator instead of death to America and death to Israel, and is arrested, they're given a death sentence. The night before their death sentence is carried out, they are raped by the guard in Evin prison, and then news of that and proof of that rape is sent to the parents. Because in Shia Islam, which is what most of them are, if you're violated before your marriage, you are sent to hell. So that is, not only do they kill this girl, they make sure their parents think that their daughter's gone to hell. I mean, it's beyond psychotic.
So I think we need to be looking at the history of the world in a very different way than we have for a long time. And here's the thing. During the, quote, the era of the American Empire, it was America and its allies that were working together, in theory, led by America. Yeah. We have no significant allies when it comes to freedom at the moment.
We do have in Israel.
Except for Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, except for Israel. And so what we need to do is America and Israel need to lead the way for the rest of the world to follow.
Oh, no question. You know, I think that some of Eastern Europe, has interesting leanings in the right direction.
Poland, Hungary,
and Czech
Republic. The Czech Republic.
Yeah. Because they've seen it all. And so they learned a little bit because they both were under both the communists and the Nazis, one after the other very quickly, actually. So, I worked and made a movie in Prague and met many people who had gone through it. In fact, many of the people working for me in the crew had
gone through that.
Gone through that.
Yeah.
On very high levels, some of them, because they were, they ran the studio, Barandov Studio in Prague is actually one of the biggest movie studios in the world. Although during communism it turned into like something spooky out of a horror movie. The lights were never on, and it was but it was there, and those people are kind of amazing. The Czechs are great because they've developed a great dark sense of humor from their experience. But I agree with you. I mean, we have to. This is a moment in history we got to revive a lot of things.
See, the idea of
the UN has to go.
Yeah, well, the UN as we know it, where we go in and we say, would you pretty please go with us? No. We need to lead the way. The United States needs to lead the way. And that's the only option for the future. And guess what, Roger? We're going to do it. How about that?
It sounds like we're going to do it. It'll be interesting when Vivek and Musk get their red pencil out and what they do to the $18 billion we give to the UN.
I say get rid of it. All right, Roger Simon, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Up next, the Tennessee Bonus Hour, and everywhere else you'll be listening to Rob Carson. I'll be here with Crom Carmichael, the original All-Star panelist. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.